All right, so it gives me great pleasure then to introduce our next speaker, Celeste. Celeste Smith is an Oneida from Six Nations of the Grand River Territory, an intergenerational trauma survivor. Her life's mission is to help women, gender diverse people rebuild their connections to the land and their lifeways. She is a seed steward, traditional agriculturist, and former professor of traditional ecological knowledge at Niagara College. Grounded in her family's agricultural traditions, her own gardening experience, and her ongoing participation in ceremony and mentorship with traditional healers and agricultural knowledge holders. She works on Indigenous food sovereignty, land justice, and Indigenous human rights through cultural seeds, and Gitchagami Gamic, Peel Food Action Council, and several national and provincial boards. Celeste's academic experience at Niagara College, Brock University, and Columbia University, New York City has also contributed to her Indigenous rights and policy and land rights understanding. Celeste, the floor is yours.
Nyago. Sagoli's gonna go. Nyangyat Celeste Smith. My name is Celeste Smith, and I'm really happy to be speaking with everyone today and kind of show you a little bit about what we've been doing on Manitoulin Island here. A little off my territory, a little to the north of it. I'm in Northern Ontario, and generally us Haudenosaunee kind of hang around the Southern Ontario. But you know what? We were up here too. Sorry for all those Anishinaabe on the call there. So that's the reason why we've called my big company is culturalseeds.com, but the project that I'm going to tell you about is called Gagitigimigamik, and that's in Anishinaabe, and it's been named by an elder here in reference to the land that we're on, because I'm Haudenosaunee. I would not normally use another language, but you know what? We have to respect the land that we're on and who we're neighbors with. So yeah, that's why we have an Anishinaabe name, even though I'm Haudenosaunee. Ongwe Honwe na, as sometimes we say. Ongwe Honwe in my language means original person from the land. So thanks for that nice introduction, Joan, and thanks everyone for inviting me here. Okay, so Gagitigimigamik, empowering Indigenous women and gender diverse people through reclaiming traditional agriculture. This is the project. This is our agricultural project. And it's rooted in traditional knowledges and the traditional ways that Indigenous people farm. So who am I? You heard a little bit about me already, so I'm not going to go into this giant picture of my face. Okay, so my story is from lawyer to farmer. So you heard a little bit how I went to Columbia, how I went to university, and I did not take farming in university. I took human rights, I took Indigenous issues, even though I come from a background of agriculturalists. I was on a mission to work for the United Nations, actually, and I was on a mission to become a lawyer and work internationally for Indigenous human rights. But something happened, and it all started with one of these, actually, one of these beautiful pieces of corn here. This corn is one of our traditional corn. And it was grown by my great aunt, Ione Anderson, who was one of the greatest agriculturalists from Six Nations. And she saved this corn from extinction, actually. Look at the varietal of this one. Look at that one. How cool. It's got white in it. Isn't that cool? That just popped out, right? As we know, when we grow corn, sometimes these neat little genetics pop out. And that's the purple. So I grew this year, actually. So my great aunt, actually, she passed. And I was in the middle of my university degree, about to decide whether I was going to go to law school or not. And I did pretty much a a 360-degree turn. And because there was no one in my family to take up these traditional practices. And I had this epiphany, and the epiphany was, if I'm working internationally to secure rights, including food sovereignty, what am I fighting for if my family loses their connection to this sovereignty? So I just stopped. I stopped everything. I moved to Manitoulin and I started farming. And I haven't looked back. And so I took up the responsibility that is within our families. But unfortunately, within a lot of families through what we've been through, right? Residential schools, et cetera, we've lost that connection. It just so happened that I still had a little small thread of that connection there that I grabbed onto. So I grabbed onto that thread with all my might, and the seeds just started to come to me. And the people just started to come to me telling me, this is something that we need to do. And guess what? I want to learn that too. And I don't know what to do with this food that we're growing. And we need to learn this. So I started culturalseeds.com and started to get those seeds into the hands of Indigenous nations, Indigenous band councils, Indigenous people. But then I realized, and this is what I realized when I was talking to my elder, Shirley Chichu. She's a film director and very accomplished woman. She's an elder, very respected. And I handed her, I was so proud. I grew this wonderful Lakota squash, this ghost squash. It's very rare and just full of pride. I handed it to her and I said, here you go. And she was like, what do you want me to do with this? And she handed it back to me. And this is an elder, someone I looked up to, someone who I thought would go, wow, great job. Thank you so much for bringing this to me. And then I realized she was a residential school survivor. She did not learn any of the things that we had in our families for thousands of generations. And then it hit me. I need to build a center. We need to build something to start this movement of regeneration of our traditional agricultural principles. And so that's how this project started. And so in my work, in my human rights work, I learned that lack of food sovereignty leads to food insecurity and poor health conditions for Indigenous people. So that's the problem that we were looking at. Right? So when my mentor Shirley handed me back the squash, this is what's the part of it, right? We can even have the food, but we don't necessarily know what to do with it, right? And the results are pretty awful. The stats, when you look at the health statistics from Indigenous people, we have an epidemic of diabetes, an absolute epidemic. Up north, some reserves have 80% of the people have diabetes. 80% of the people have diabetes. Let's just say that again. 80%. That is insane. That is not right. And obviously there's an issue. Heart disease is through the roof. Lower life expectancy. I mean, we're looking at our elders dying in their 70s. This is not, elders never lived to their 70s. We're talking 120, 130 years old, our elders used to live. Higher rates of infant mortality. And this is not generally the case. We are normally really super healthy people. So there is something happening. There's something going on. There is a linkage here that we need to look at. And I think that I have figured it out somewhat. And it is no access to land, no access to traditional foods, no access to traditional knowledge. And in our communities, we have no connection, no hope to change the future of our own communities. And this is what we're trying to address. So what we're trying to do is reestablish the connection between our land and our food, and then consequently the land and ourselves. So get that back together.
5 minutes.
Okay, sure. And this is what we're looking at. So this is Gagitigimmigamiik. So this is actually a part of what it's going to look like. This is the ceremony lodge. So this is a place we envision where participants can live and work in a land-based immersion program taught with the seasons and traditional ceremonies, where we will reimagine and reinvent our agriculture systems and our food systems using traditional and modern methods, from ancient mound building to current permaculture techniques and climate adaptation for the future of our agriculture systems. So these are some beautiful pictures as our team of Indigenous elders and traditional knowledge holders guide their learning from seed to harvest. So the goal is to help them solve food security in their home communities and reclaim their place as the agricultural leaders, what we always were, agricultural leaders, always in the world. We had one little story, I'll tell it really quick, but when George Washington burned down one of the villages of the Senecas around Buffalo area, we had over 20,000 barrels of corn. So that was just one village. So yeah, we were pretty darn good. This is what it's going to look like. This is our vision. Isn't it beautiful? And I'm going to talk about the land real quick. So it's like I said, it's an agricultural learning center. So we have all of this great stuff. It's on Ice Lake. And sorry, guys, I'm just going to go real quick. So this is our team of elders, Dr. Shirley Chichu, James Shawana. We've got some amazing people here. We've got climate change advisor. We've got habitat advisor. I just hired a project manager. We're moving along. And these are our partners, actually NFU members, Chuck and Linda Wilson. And this is a big part of the project that I wanted to let you guys know. And that's the story of the land. This is Ravenswing Farm, and it's owned by Chuck and Linda Wilson, and they're NFU members, and they've been NFU members for 30 years. And they own our garden products here on, it's called Our Garden Products. And it's on Manitoulin Island. And they heard what we wanted to do, and they said, we want to partner with you. We want to do a land sharing agreement. We want you here. We want you to teach us, and also we can teach you, and we can live together on this beautiful 50-acre property, and we're going to be doing maple syruping. This is their little space right now. We've got hawberries. There's an orchard. So these are the types of things that. How much time do I have left, Joan? These are the types of things that can happen, right? Just a few minutes. 1 more minute.
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay. So these are the types of things that can happen when we make these partnerships, when we bring people together and do these land sharing agreements. So we're going to actually coincidentally be working with the NFU to look at, hopefully, to look at how we can further agricultural land partnerships, Indigenous and non-Indigenous people coming together in these kind of reconciliation projects. Now, there's a buzz around this that's happening all around Canada, actually, and around the US. I'm a part of a national land trust. It's called Conservation Through Reconciliation. It's a land trust group that's researching all of this great stuff and how we can really, again, share the land. And the presentation that Joel did before me is an awesome, type of land sharing that, we can all do. So the reason this is happening is because one of our NFU members has stepped up and said, we want this to happen, because this project would not have happened without this partnership. So it's and you can see the good that this partnership is going to do in our communities, and also the model that it's going to make for future partnerships as well, because I envision this happening, our alumni going back to their communities, on reserve, off reserve, wherever it is, and building this as a movement. Again, a part of empowerment, building women farmers, building our capacities back up, also as Indigenous people, to increase our food sovereignty. You can imagine that there are lots of, hi, Anastasia. She was one of the people that brought me into the NFU, actually. So you can imagine what can happen in the future, kind of when these things these things go forward. So not going to really talk about our vision, don't have time for that. But long-term vision, we got a lot of stuff happening here. So you can see that this thing is just exploding into book series and wholesale distribution to other Indigenous industries. The Indigenous business beauty industry is exploding right now, and we need to get them, you know, products. So there's so many things. Indigenous entrepreneurs are just really great. I was just in the powwow pitch, actually. I was a semi-finalist for Ontario, and I met so many amazing people just out there doing so many things on the land. So if farmers really want to get involved in this kind of amazing kind of renaissance that's happening, you know, it can be done. It can be done. We did ceremony around this, and we really have
You have frozen. Hopefully you'll come back to us and
a really solid spiritual practice. Awesome. Okay, so we're done, and here we go. And this is how to get a hold of us. So check us out online, culturalseeds.com or wewillplantlodge.com. And thank you so much. Now go, everyone.